Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
It's Friday night on Spaced Out Radio. How y'all doing? My name is Dave Scott, and what a way to end the week. We're getting into cosmology, a little bit of aliens, and more. Ananda Bosman is here, a good BC boy hanging out with another good BC boy. We're going to have a great time tonight, so thank you for joining us. Let us say hello to everybody in our chat room so far. We have Laura Lobbs at the gold medal position, race fan with a silver, and B, taking home a bronze medal here. Hi, Simon the Likeable and JSCO, Paula Fost, Road Flair, Jimmy Gonzalez, and Robert Lamoth. Nice to see you all. Brown Dwarf and Forrest Louie, good to see you. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, Philip Baca, how you guys doing? Thank you for coming on in. 1mg of epinephrine, welcome to SOR chat. Shell Ashley is back. Shell Ashley will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Continuing on here, let us say hello to Griff and Aussie Ange. Thank you for coming on in. And number 17 in your program, starting at left wing tonight from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. Digger Dog, nice to have you here. Light Walkers, Yummy Cookie on Twitch. Thank you for joining us. And T-Bone, my man, how are you? Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Flat Six, good to see you. And Ingrid, welcome to SOR chat. Millennium, my man, thank you for joining us. And where are we here? Noble Patrick, the lovely Jenny, purple-haired Pixie Lara. Nice to see you all. Deb from Sac, how are you, my dear? The Debster. Desert Rat, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. Desert Rat will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. There we have Vanessa. Thank you for coming on in. And moving forward here, we have Forrest Louie kicking off the super chat tonight. Thank you, Louie, as you do almost every night when you're here kicking off the super chat. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. Let's continue on here. Mentira, what's happening? And yeah, it's funny you mentioned CM Punk. I was just reading an article on him today. All right, Thomas Rock, how you doing, man? Major Lee, how you doing? Good morning to you. And where are we here? Destiny Rocks. There she is. Look at her hearts. She just puts up all those hearts. Just, hello, my name is Destiny. Sharing love as we speak. Love it. Love it. All right, continuing on. Nina Williams. What's happening? Richard Elmore. Thanks for coming on in. And Rafin. Good to see you. Kathy Evans. Good to have you back. We are caught up so far. See? Well, even more hearts from Destiny Love. I'm looking at her picture here. You know, she may be competing with Kim Jellin for nicest teeth on Spaced Out Radio's chat room. Just saying. Could be. Could be. All right. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears as we await Bill WD-40 to come on into the chat room and lube us up for tonight's show. Yeah, there he is. Start lubing, Bill. start lubing. I chillgasm. And for our radio side, Ananda Bosman is our guest tonight. We're getting into some cosmology and aliens, find out what all this is about. Oh, yeah. You got some aliens. I got some aliens. We want aliens. That's what we want. God, I love the aliens. That's all good stuff right there. All right. Super chat is open. Don't forget, we got brand new swag up on our store, spacedoutradio.com. We do. And yes, it all ships to the United States and around the world, at least most places in the world. I know there's some troubles with some. I'm trying to figure that out. But don't worry about the flags on the store. Just pick your item and go get it. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag at our store. You're going to want to wear our stuff. Brandon Blount, nice to see you. Pix, good to have you here. Here we go, everybody. That time of the night to get your horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can join us on our website. All right, let's get to it. We got a great show of fun tonight. Ananda Bosman is here for cosmology, numerology, reflexology. I'm just making up the ologies right now because it's a lot of fun. No, cosmology and alien contact. We're going to have a lot of fun with him, fellow British Columbia guy like myself. So you know it's going to be good. I can guarantee you it's going to be good. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton joins us for the Among the Missing segment. From there, we got Courtney Marcassani in for the UFO report. All right, let's have some fun tonight as Ananda Bosman is a visionary cosmologist, semantic artist, international researcher, and an award-winning musician, the founder of the 432 Hertz popular and electronic music movement during the 1990s. However, it was 34 years ago when he had a near-death experience that completely changed Ananda's life. He had been in contact with Numinous ultra-terrestrial golden light beings called Emmanuel. As a teenager, they imparted thousands of pages of living information into him. As a result, Ananda became a detailed and skilled researcher and developed a unique cosmology and semantic art based upon the Emmanuel stream, as well as his ultra-terrestrial and extra-temporal intelligence contacts, for which he has over 150 witnesses. I got to learn about this stuff. This is going to be good. We're into some serious woo tonight, people. All right, let's say hello to Ananda Bosman. Welcome to Space Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Good. And it's a great pleasure and honor to be on your show and with a fellow person who's summoning the UFO. It was 38 years ago, the near-death experience now. I guess that was an older CV. And that led to the ability to summon UFOs as a 15-year-old at the time, and having these clear series of contacts, landings, and various forms of interfaces, as well as mystical experiences. During the 90s, as they acted more like my tutors or college professors for a contract of about 11 years, which went until December 2001, there was fine tuning in our contacts and in my ability to fine-tune the semantic arts. But this was presented also in public. It's 180 witnesses, but a beautiful intro, and it's a great honor and pleasure to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so glad you were here. Let us learn a little bit about you. You were a teenager when you had a near-death experience that altered your life completely. What happened there?
So I was a BMX champion, and I was cycling like 60 miles a day, and this is in Dorset, England, the West Country. And so I would train by cycling up the steepest hill I could find as fast as I could, and to pass through the pain barrier, that's easy. The bliss barrier was the trouble, all the endorphins, and that gets in the way of having a really strong-willed, fast race. So I was going through the bliss barrier, and at the top brim of the hill, the chain came off. So I went head over heels. I hit the front right lobe of my head, and I span out of the body. I was surrounded by a hypersphere, as I call it now, a golden sphere with these golden beings inside. And there were these rays going into my past, other experiences, which I had in the Swiss Alps contact experience, and into the future, different events that were still to occur, some of which have already occurred. So it was kind of a hyper-temporal state that was past, present, and future. Eventually, when I come back, I take my bike and myself to the side of the road because the car coming the other way wouldn't see me. It's now dark. And I pass out for a while. Then I'm told that to get on the bike, although I'm completely dizzy, and I would go out, but they would ride me. So I would cycle several miles back home. So after having gone to the hospital, having a checkup, etc., I was completely changed. I knew that being a teenager was a social act. I had to just get on with what I had to get on with. I'd had another near-death experience when I was 11, and that was kind of a preparation for this one when I was 15. And so from that came the UFO, came rapid contacts and mystical experiences. For a period when we were 16 and 17, we were doing also out-of-body travel, also something that I called ETIVR, the ET being extra-temporal intelligence, where you have an avatar of your five somatic system, the five senses, and you go into the internet, the hyper-internet of these intelligences. Having had a lifetime to review the intense contact period during the 80s, and then the tutorship during the 90s, I've come to several different hypotheses of what is going on with the UFO phenomena and then UFO intelligences. We can use aliens, but it's much more than that. So we have our superintelligence hypothesis. That's one, and the other is the designer world hypothesis. In 1992, I met a member of the Order of the Golden Fleece, Bard, who is the descendant from William Peveril, who is the first sheriff of Nottingham, who is a heraldic bard who knew the secret code. So this was Geoffrey Peveril Pinder, who I met in 92. And he showed me that the whole world, all the topologies, place names, are fractally arranged in regard to each other with great circles, isosceles triangles, so that the place names, let's say in France or in Europe, reflect the star constellations exactly. And these are mirrored again and again and again, but on different ratios of pi. So I saw many shelves of the whole world mapped that way, and that's something you can't undo. So for me, it's not a hypothesis, but what we are doing is bridging that information. He took a lot of his information with him. I have a little bit of it, remnants of it. And I have another scientist in Europe, but I won't mention his name until he's ready to come out. We'll maybe do a press conference here, who is finding the code of the designer world in certain literatures. So the Shakespearean code, you have to go to the volumes that are not error corrected, because in the model of the designer world, there is a superluminal series of universes which is slowed down through a valve, a cat flap, so to speak, to the speed of light and below, and modulated into a world game board that modulates the stars and the topologies and their interarrangements. And that's what he was trained to do and to decode, first in Great Britain, but he had to flee the Bardic groups there. He created the International Intermediary Company in Den Haag, and then for a while was a bard of Queen Juliana as well. So I've seen Designer World, and we've just developed this further. The Designer World is kind of glove-fitting the superintelligence hypothesis. That is, that there is a superintelligence behind the UFO phenomenon, some of the UFO phenomena. There are different things going on. But in terms of the context, this is a graphic interface system where the UFO is tailor-made to the contactee, the experiencer, or the abductee, based on their psyche and based on the crises that they have to go through. These could be negative modules, positive modules, and everything in between. And so you have a very clear-cut UFO that is fresh. Very often you get implants being inserted, but they have a certain timing as well. So I think of Dr. Rauni Lukanen Kilda, who was quite famous in Finland as a surgeon, first for having automatic writing from her aunt. And then in the US, in New Mexico, she had her first UFO sighting with Dr. Andrea Puharish. And she became a regular experiencer, I would have to say, kind semi-abductee, more experiencer. And she wrote some books on that and became quite famous. Then, unfortunately, I introduced her to mind control, and I think she died because of it. Because my colleagues and I in Copenhagen at the time had been studying Robert Naslund, who was a Swedish victim from SAPO, Swedish intelligence, who received all of these implants and step-by-step photographs of some of these implants being removed. We could hold those implants. It's a very real case. And that was a life-changing event for her. So she kind of headed the mind control vault in Europe and had many conferences. And got targeted herself. But with her, she received, when her husband was still there and she lived in Geneva, her husband was working in the UN. During one experience with the UFO entities, they put in a crescent implant into her head, and she was left conscious because she's a surgeon. So she was curious how they were doing it. And there were some pieces of the metal that remained on her forehead that they had grafted in. And so she took these and put them in a vial. And it took about a week before she arrived back in Finland to a lab to have them analyzed. But like angel hair, these metal fibers had melted. Likewise, a scan of her brain showed there was no longer any implant. So that is a temporary reality, a synthesized reality. And there are different time cells that are placed on the icon, the UFO module, as an interface to something that would blow out our senses were we to experience this super intelligence.
Wow. I mean, that's quite a jump into absolutely everything that you have not only experienced, but on the path that you chose. I mean, did you believe all of this, or did you just, after your near-death experience, just allow yourself to be guided that way?
A bit of both, really. Once you've had your 100th or so UFO sighting and interaction, and you're focusing your heart will on the UFO and its signals back, landings, and other mystical experiences, it becomes irreversible. So when I was 16, the manifestation of one of the golden light beings, Salvana, was another life-changing experience, coming down at the side and into my central focus of vision, but looking at every single part of me as the creator already. And I had to experience that. It was extremely intense because the parts of oneself that you have kind of siphoned off at school that you think are imperfect were also being seen as perfect, which was extremely intense. So we're being seen as God, as all as God. And so that was another life-changing experience. The communications that occurred with the Emmanuels, the ultraterrestrials, hyperterrestrials, omniterrestrials. Initially, I call them interuniversals, and who are a kind of umbrella array of myriads of different intelligences. What would happen as one was overlighted, all the five senses would fuse, the personalities would melt, and you would go into a super sense of the five senses as one. And you're in a kind of state of bliss from head to toe. And then this living information unfolds, these living images. And one beholds it and sees it being neurocybernetically translated into language. And there's a part of oneself that says, well, I've always known this. And then there's the earthly character that says, well, how could I possibly know that? So these kind of things would be occurring. In the 11-year contract, and in the 11-year contract with the UFO intelligences, who presented themselves as extra-temporals, although if I examine all of their communications, they're a bit more than that, from which has emerged the designer world and superintelligence hypothesis. The communications were through these beams, ether beams, and a different form of adjustment took place. But I had a contract that I could question them, I could call them ethers, and the like. And I did strongly, because there were adjustments going on. In retrospect, those were exactly right, what I required at that point.
As you melded your life into this type of living, what was your surroundings like at that point? Because not everybody around you believes you that you're seeing UFOs, that you're having ultra terrestrial experiences, that you are becoming more spiritually adept. I mean, how did you deal with the outside world on this?
Well, that was pretty well synchronized. So my mother, as an artist, had dabbled in spiritual subjects all her life. In fact, I was a prayer baby for the White Eagle Lodge, the Beasley Foundation, the Theosophists, etc. She was surprised, but I said, look, I've come from another planet. That's what I said to her at that point. I don't know about that, but that's how I felt it. And I said, come on, let's go outside. And I, summoned the UFOs, and she saw a dark area where a UFO switches on, and it went along and either jumps or vanishes or does a flash or zigzags. And there were quite a few of those. And so she got to see quite a lot of that. And she also got the recordings, and her husband too. So that's in the 80s, got the recordings of the wisdom and was studying it. I myself did not really release that because I wanted to test the nuggets, the living image foundry of the Emmanuel. So it took about 5 years before I started going into the European public. Of course, these were everyday experiences to me. So one friend of mine, long-term friend, Klaus Nikolai Nielsen in Copenhagen, he said, well, what you're saying is fantastic, but you're speaking about it as if it's normal. But it was to me. So, and then, each of these people I have contact with get their own experiences. But more recently in the Swiss Alps, in this recent phase of our life, we engaged this with science. So, because we don't want this to be a fantastic phenomenon, we have to naturally integrate what is interfacing with us. So we did this dialogues with the cosmos, which basically took from 1985 our experience with summoning UFOs. And you use a card. I've used up a lot of my cards, so I don't need to see UFOs. Last UFO I saw that was convincing was in Seychelles, April the 13th, with my whole family, over the Seychelles hospital. And the photographs I took shows that in every single frame, it is a different shape. At the same time, my daughter, my wife, and myself, we were seeing different geometries at the same time. So that was interesting. I hadn't seen it in that way before. I'd seen disks, motherships, spheres, vortexia forms, many different kinds, physicalized or just light. So these multiple geometries at the same time was interesting, and you do have that phenomenon appearing all over the world, which is kind of exemplifying a hyperdimensional geometry. And that was on the anniversary of a contact I had in Norway, April the 13th, 1995, in the Missingmere forest there, where 3 of the extra-temporals came down in inverted trumpets at 2% of what they are. So you could see the particles in their body. And the female, Athena, who had been a major tutor for me already in the Emmanuel phase, but continued in the UFO intelligence phase, invited me to step into her. So I stepped into her and I went into this hyperdimensional or multidimensional space, and she showed me these paradoxical geometries for me at the time, and 7 of those, but in isosymmetry, so positive and negative, and where they overlap. And she told me that I one day would be modeling that. And indeed, that's what I did in my later life. I started to computer animate interdimensional geometry or isotopic geometry into an iso hypercube that unites all the Platonic solids, but in a dynamic manner. So I had media appearances. I did radio already in London, in Amsterdam in 1989. Then I started doing Radio Krishna in November of 1990, Copenhagen. And because the Emmanuels had communicated certain things about aliens, as we say, aliens is a very wide, open topic. It can mean many things for many people. But it was disturbing, and I came across a kilo of documentation. I started to research this, and this led me then for 3 years to prepare this book, The Alien Presence, the Evidence for Government Contact with Alien Life Forms, which I published in 1993. It's almost 500 pages, lots of documents. So we went into that aspect, did press conferences in Copenhagen called JFK and the Alien Presence. I was 21 years old. I just turned 21. It was January 1991. We had managed to engage 75 journalists. So it was a good event, and we presented coherently. And every paper that was published was fairly congruent, was leaving the question open. The television clip it took 3 days. It became a short 9 o'clock news piece by Meta Hager. I've uploaded that some years ago. So there was that aspect too. And this began really then the Semantic Artist. So really taking all of those living images and those experiences into deep research in a myriad of different branches, whether it be Egypt, Sumeria, whether it be geometry, sacred mathematics. Numerology was already engaged in a contact we had in 1986 in the Swiss Alps.
Wow. So you went fully deep into this to learn.
This became full-on life experience. Absolutely.
Wow. And it continues to this day.
Now, during the 90s, when we had the fine-tuning, the Emmanuels withdrew in terms of information, which was a good thing because they would have been otherwise breast milk, and I would have been breastfeeding forever. And they said, now you have to learn to get there yourself. And this is gradually what then started to occur, using one's anthropic sentience to get living ideas, and then clothing them in facts in various branches of various compartments of information.
Well, when we return on Spaced Out Radio for the second half hour, we're going to find out who the Emmanuels are. What kind of aliens are they? Where are they from? What is their message? A very important part to Ananda Bosman's story tonight on the Mighty SOR. Yes, get your tinfoil ready because the aliens are coming in the next half hour on Spaced Out Radio. Hi, Dry Toast. How you doing? That was a strong first half hour, my friend.
Okay.
Matt Geek, how are you? You having fun so far, Ananda?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Through the Ethernet, one tunes to some of the participants.
Beautiful. Tune away, my man. Tune away.
Beautiful.
I think so.
You have a great audience you've built up because you started with this in 2013, right?
Now, for 2014, we started the show.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes. So you've built up a awake, aware audience over with each of their unique qualities, I can imagine.
Well, we've generated an audience that understands that we believe everybody. I've never stood in your shoes. You've never stood in mine. Therefore, who am I to tell you that your experiences are not what you experienced? Right? We try and have a very open vision of what we are doing on this show.
Yes, indeed. That's a wonderful trait, indeed.
Mm.
And you're doing it with journalism, so that's fabulous.
Trying. We're getting somewhere.
Yeah, you are.
So it's working, I think.
Yeah. And you're also going on to solid state radio as well.
Yes.
And that's US as well as BC?
Actually, I don't have any stations in BC. I have one in near Toronto and 7 in the US.
Oh, very good. Excellent.
We're hoping to change that soon, though. Hoping to change it soon.
How so?
Oh, I'm in talks with a company right now.
I see.
Yeah.
It will be announced when it's done.
Exactly. Fingers crossed.
Yes. Sounds good, though.
Hello, I am not a monster. Who else is joining us here? Driftwood, how you doing? Thank you to Louis ×2 and T-Bone, hi Superdonor, for the super chats tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you. Also, want to remind you, hi CS, that you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. We got stuff you want to wear. You're not going to be ashamed of wearing our stuff. It's not lawn mowing type of shirts or painting the house types of shirts and clothing. It's not flea market wearing types of shirts. Well, you could do that. So go check it out. We got some new designs up there. We got a disclosure for dollars, UFOs, UAP, know the difference. We got Spaced Out Radio socks. Got some new hats out. Yeah. Lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff out there. All right, we got about 40 seconds. All right. What else can we say? 20 seconds to go here.
Yeah.
Having a good night. Hi, Human Carl. How you doing, buddy? All right, everybody, here we go. Second half hour, Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We continue on with Ananda Bosman, cosmologist, ufologist, alien contactee. We're going to get right into it right now. Ananda, welcome back. You had a connection with a group that you call the Emmanuels. I've never heard of this group before. Tell us who they are, what they look like.
Yeah. So the Emmanuel's very tall golden light, but it's a whole light. So this is a light that contains universes. It's a cybernetic light, so to speak. Well, in the communications, Manu Emmanuel was one of the characters. Salvana Emmanuel was another, per example. In my 32nd year, I started looking at the Rig Veda, which has non-human authorship. So the Anachromanes appendices describe which non-human authors wrote which hymn of the 432,000 syllable Rig Veda. Manu, Emmanuel, we could identify in the DNA of the communications and in the hymns of Rig Veda. The Manu in the Proto-Vedic, not Hindu, pre-Hindu, which the Rig Veda is part of. It doesn't have the reincarnation lore. It has a concurrent hyper-temporal incarnational concept through the original or DNA of what we call the one body of Christ, the Word, in the book of John. So the book of John is really derived from the hymn of the Godhead, which is in book 10 of Rig Veda, and it is hymn 90. And so that describes this cosmic anthropos, this cosmic intelligence that incarnates in the universe, the Brahti Brahmanda, the multiverse, myriads of multiverses, and the omniverse, the Maha Brahmanda, as it's later called. And each of these emanations and incarnations in all of these myriads of worlds of the omniverse is the contemplation, the meditation on what is the all-one maker. That is neither existence nor non-existence, beholding all. And so there's a lot of riddles in that. But the Manu are described to be administrators of the universe, the multiverse, and the omniverse. So they are inter-universals. They also hold the archetypal template for whole races of beings. So on our website and on anandabosman.com, you can download a PDF, which is called the 432,000 man-like races, the Manusa, which goes into that code. What's interesting is that the Rig Veda shows that the 432,000 syllables are also modeled to the anatomy of our body, later to be understood as the spinal cord and the Rexad, which is linked to 432,000 dopamine neurons in the central brain, which also produces the continuum of the five sensorial apparatus. So the 432,000 man-like races are also cross-modeled to the 432,000 dopamine neurons governing the spinal cord, to 432,000 different anatomical features. So this has been mapped out beautifully. So in that sense, these aliens, as some would say, we do not personally subscribe anymore to any extraterrestrial hypothesis. This is something much greater. There are different phenomena, of course, taking place, as you said, discerning between a UAP and a UFO, per example, with all of the technology that goes back from a long time. One of the things that was related is that we're in a dumbed down civilization. We're amidst a super civilization, but this world is very much like the film The Village, where the villagers are not allowed to leave the forest because of certain monsters, etc. That's very much the retro world that we are in part within. That's the designer world. But the designer world is not simulation theory. It's much more active than that. It is you can log on to it, but you can log on to it with coherence in mind and heart. So when the heart coherence peaks in compassion at 8 cycles per second, it also entrains the brain at 8 cycles per second, and the heart magnetism produces the golden proportion from the 7 toroidal magnetic fields that are in every heartbeat, generated by the 7 layers of heart muscle, which have 7 tilt angles, the 7 tilt angles of the tetrahedron. In a normal heartbeat, you're producing a rainbow. But when you are in coherence, the 7 angles carry each other in coherence in the golden proportion. That is the logon. It's also in Hessdal, and I had a UFO contact in Norway during the perfect conjunction with Galactic Center for our particular time. Next time is 2222 AD. So November 1998, a UFO appeared over where we'd made a temporal portal with a group of 64 people in 1996. And the UFO was captured by the weather station there. And so we were in contact with the Hessdalen Research Project, Dr. Erling there from the Hessdalen Research Project, which I mentioned in my Montreal presentation, the second academic symposium on ufology, as it is proper, which was peer-reviewed. So we mentioned that work. And I asked Erling in 1998, as we were speaking, have you ever detected 8 cycles per second before the UFO appears? Then the UFO appears, takes on plasma, and eventually takes on rare earth elements like scandium, will travel at 30,000 kilometers, then go 180 degrees the opposite way. The scientists will shine a laser on it. It will flash back the same amount as the laser had flashed. And he said, well, Ananda, as a matter of fact, every time the Hessdalen light phenomenon appears, we get 8 or 7.4 to 7.8 hertz. So he was going on the Schumann resonance. The ideal is 8 cycles per second because the whole universe, 90% of the universe is hydrogen. And the hydrogen atom has a single electron and proton whose phase velocity difference in their velocities is an equation of 8 cycles per second. So that's kind of the universal tempering, as we've called it in our musicological theory, of which 432 hertz is one component. We can go into that later. So the Manu are the hyper template, the Emmanuels, a hyper template for these various forms of embodiment in different world systems.
Wow, that is quite deep, and in where you're going with these beings, the Emmanuels. Now, are they earthly beings? Are they spiritual beings? Are they from off planet, different dimension?
They are interdimensional, so they're able to modulate into different dimensional modules, and are interuniversal. So they're not locked into a dimensionality. They can adjust themselves, but they relay, actually, each being is eventually able to do that. So we also focused, because we had experiences where we disappeared and people didn't see us. That happened with UFOs, but it also happened with the Emmanuels. So in 1988, Charlotte Obama, my mother, I went to Chetnall Hill in the Dorset Downs, and I had established a portal there with the UFOs, which would form grid systems. The beams would come through me and go into the ground. So as I stood in that portal, which had been going to weekly, and I was dedicating the time and space with deep heart will in the love of God, forgetting myself. Charlotte described afterwards that I was then electric blue, then particles, and then patches of blue, and then I disappeared. What I remember is I went into this vacuum system, which is quite dark, but there are nexus, there are nodes of spheres, and they are linked together as an Ethernet. And then I come back, you make your altered ego and all the rest of it. And she, again, saw the blue form, my mother as well. And then I took on my body form. I've had quite a few experiences like that. So I know the reality that we have been presented through schools and universities, and education system and social spin, it's not exactly like that. In my later years, of course, I discovered hadronic mechanics. 22 years ago, I was introduced to this brand new physics. This is a physics that has been obscured, but it's in the applied sciences. It basically has the solution for all the nuclear waste being turned into clean energies. It produces a gas called magna gas that can be put into gas injection system, and it simply makes that by simulating lightning, because it is a brand new mathematics, it's a brand new physics. It unifies the whole history of mathematics. It is the applied sciences, so it deals with the internal problem of physics as well as the external problem. And it has come to a point of macroscopic irreversibility and microscopic irreversibility, and the continuum between them. So these irreversibilities demonstrate, again, the universal ether without the ethereal wind that the Michelson-Morley experiment was trying to find for the speed of Earth. They threw away all of ether physics, but you just have to get rid of the ether wind. And so it's practical. It produces a lot of technologies, scientists all over the world, but cosmologically, it's fundamentally extraordinary. It's basically identified that there is a total entanglement of all space, and there is a complementary total entanglement of all time, which implies there is a super intelligence that has calculated all past, present, and future moments. And it also describes matter in a completely different way to how we have been conditioned. So there is a field called intermediary controlled nuclear fusion, which happens at body temperature with 100 psi, which is the pressure we have on the skin. Water is the superior media for that, and that's 72% of our body. And the lightning simulator, the plasma arc flow, what it does is it takes the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where you don't know where the electron is exactly around the atom, and it turns it into a lemniscate, where two electrons are coupled together without any valency bonding, and that's called an isoelectron, and whole clusters of them become magnacles. And magna gas is it's on the Nasdaq, so you know it's actually the generators, the company magnagas.com. This is all real, but it's a brand new series of chemicals, and it appears that we are also made of these iso superconductors at body temperature. Furthermore, hypermagnacles have been described in a brand new branch called hypergenetics. So in the classical sciences, Dr. Chris Illert, who's a hadronic scientist in this brand spanking new physics that deals with the uncertainties, the inconsistencies of quantum theory, which have been there since 1934, and which Einstein, Rosen, and co. pointed to, Podolsky, and the wormhole physics, that quantum mechanics cannot describe what is in the atom, because in the atom, as you go to the nuclear core, you have anything but a vacuum. And the way special relativity looks at point particles, quanta particles, it has to be in a vacuum. But you've got the most dense material in the heart of the atom. And each of the hadrons that compose the nuclear core have wave packets that overlap. And we know the density because of, nuclear fusion, the hydrogen bomb, and nuclear fission, the atomic bomb. So this region, which is called the hyperdense medium, the hadronic horizon, has a different laws of physics, and hadronic mechanics has made that. There is a total entanglement in a toroid of infinite recursion. It basically links or entangles with every other heart of every other atom, and this is the universal substrate of the ether. So this is very similar to the Emmanuel communications on the all oneness. It's not just a oneness. There's the all, which represents the eternity or the emptiness, the immaculate emptiness, which the Buddhists call sunyata, and in Rig Veda is sunyateya. And then there is ananta, which is infinite oneness, infinite bliss. And the two are indivisibly co-present as all one, all oneness. And this is the foundation of our world, world systems, multiverse, omniverse. Omniverse and multiverse is not dealt with hadronic mechanics. It only deals with the mechanics that are observable and testable and being turned into technology. So this changes the perspective of who we are. And so I'm interested in intermediary controlled nuclear fusion because I think that's what occurred and occurs rapidly as one is redigitalized with the UFO. The subatomic particles, the hadrons, etc., are digital. So as one is redigitalized, and this was a regular experience, the experiencer experience during the 80s, where at night you go into the ships. Very hard to remember, but you practice dream yoga and you bring some back. And I was observed by my mother's husband, Jeff Sedgwick, to fall onto the bed. He just walked into the room. I was falling back into the bed. Also, when I was having a ETI VR experience with a green skin being called Krona in 1989, at that point over our Greystone house in Yetminster, England, a black plectrum-like triangle UFO was flying over. These kind of correlations between the inner and the outer. So by intermediate controlled nuclear fusion, you get a phenomenon very similar to what you have in Tibetan Buddhism, where you have the Tibetan Book of the Dead practiced when you die and the body shrinks up. And in some observations, leaves nothing behind. It can become very small, a few centimeters, it can become a foot. But there are several observed instances, one in 1998, where all of the body goes into the greater rainbow body, into the diamond body. But the woman who wrote the Tibetan Book of the Dead, she's a contactee, Yeshe Chokshel. She had contact with Padmasambhava, who is not human. What Tibetan Buddhists don't realize is actually the teachings of Padmasambhava are the Rig Veda. And the scholars don't know that. So she wrote the Tibetan Book of the Dead and she practiced it while alive by light isolation. And we developed that in 1992, light isolations or darkroom retreats. We cracked open the darkroom secret, which causes the pineal gland to produce penolines and DMT and 5-MeO-DMT, which we could say is a genuine endohuasca, endogenous ayahuasca, or an endosoma. And so, yeah, and so we developed a model by which these molecules of the third eye, with sound harmonics and certain techniques unifying all 8 opposite poles of the body in 8 cycles, could engage intermediate controlled nuclear fusion while alive. And this is what Yeshe Chokshel did in her 40s. And afterwards, she has these Christ-like powers, walking through walls, many places at the same time, taking bread and duplicating it. and letting herself age, then regenerate, and the like. And she's the authoress of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which was dictated to her or channeled or beheld from Padma Sambhava. So it's actually a manual for the transformation of the body, intermediate controlled nuclear fusion of the body. After we die, on the 4th and 6th day, you have stem cells that start becoming active. And this happens on the 14th day as well. Perhaps we have not yet fully understood what death is, and that we can actually utilize that state for a further metamorphosis of the body. I call this biotranshumanism, and this is a great passion of mine.
Ananda Bosman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Cosmology. We got 3 minutes to go before we have to head to a break at the top of the hour. For those of us who are unfamiliar with the work and the dealings of cosmology and how it really intertwines itself throughout the universe and life in general, could you break it down for us?
Yeah. So we are really based on ontology, which is the science of being. Without being, there is nothing. So there's no scientific experiment that can remove being. That's Aristotle's ontology, although you have in the Proto-Vedic, you have an ontology. And eschatology, which is the study of the ultimate or the utmost, the eschaton. And that became the revelation of all is God, not a creator separate from the creation, not this duality that was inserted military style by the Hindu Empire, which is another branch of the Babylonian Empire. But we won't get into that kind of politics, although it's apparently the distant past. The cosmology in that sense is an understanding of the cosmos, the philosophies, the principles that translate axiomatically, apply as above, so below, as within, so without, but apply through different fields. So that which is experienced, translated into semantics, translated into biofeedback, translated into art, through myriads of different fields. So that is a cosmological backset that basically, as a semantic artist, we take all fields, and each field is like a palette, color palette, from which you make your paintings of understanding. And through the Emmanuel process, the expansions that occurred in the living image foundries, we could find ourselves going into myriads of different fields and rapidly decoding them. So instead of having this intercompartmentalization that creates these barriers between these different scholarly topics, I have to also admit that in my immediate surroundings in the 80s, I had met two mentors, Sir George Trevelyan, who was knighted for poetry by the Queen, and Nigel Blair, who was an English teacher at Oxford. So I had Cambridge and Oxford teachers who also made me aware of the higher spiritual English. And it appeared that the way that the syntax was coming through via the Emmanuels, how it was translated, was this higher spiritual English. And so I would say, well, look, does integrate mean something that's between the greats, between the grids, but unifies them? And so you've got all these Oxford dictionaries lying there, and we could look it up at the etymology, and you'd find that the Emmanuel syntax was indeed based on this spiritual English, which was really developed by Sir Francis Bacon, who was somewhat of a contactee of himself, and who was trained in the semantic arts by Dr. John Dee from the age of 4. And who is one of the Shakespeare conspirators who added 10,000 words to the British language to make it neurocybernetic. He based it on the Satapatha Brahmana, which is a beautiful binomial mathematical embedded system. Only NASA Ames only found that Sanskrit had an embedded neurosemantic network.
Ananda Bosman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are getting schooled tonight. I love it. This is what we do. This is why we learn. There's a lot more to life than what we see beyond the picket fences. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Stay tuned. Great job so far tonight, man.
All right, thank you. I didn't say at the beginning, I like to say this is non-dogmatic. These are non-dogmatic explorations, of course. We might speak it. We might speak in certainties, but that doesn't mean it is so.
All right. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to put you back in the green room. I'll be right back, okay? Right. Welcome back, everybody. Moody Mongol, how you doing? And Philip Aka, Dave doesn't hate you. Just wants to wash your mouth out with soap every now and again. Paul Koloski, how are you? All right, let's say hello. Hi, Operation Shutdown. Al Garay over on Twitch. How you doing, buddy? Got to get you over here on the YouTube side, man. Let's bring in Ananda. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Right on. We got 20 seconds left. Thank you to Louie ×3, T-Bone ×2, and Lisa for the great super chats. Hi, Jennifer Patterson. Vlad the Impaler, good to see you. And Ingo Tomasco, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. And here we go in 5 seconds, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here is hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Pactolian. Pactolian is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio, Instagram @Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Hour 2 of learning about cosmology, aliens, contact, spirituality, and much more. Ananda Bosman is here tonight. Thank you, Ananda, for joining us. It's been a great show so far. Can't wait for hour 2 here.
Thank you. Great pleasure.
Out of all the things that you have learned, is there a divine maker? Is there a source that we are all concentrated from?
So that kind of cosmology, the Emmanuels went into a hyperlinear description. So where all is God. When you have the concept of God is in everything, you have a dualism. And that was one of the problems that was introduced with Hinduism. In Rig Veda, all is God. So you don't have a creator that is in the Copenhagen loop of infinite reflex, where if there is a creator, who created the creator of the creator, and where did the creator create the creation in? Okay, it's the vacuum, but who created the vacuum or the ether, if you go that way? And who is the creator of the creator of the creator? So that's the Copenhagen loop of infinite reflex. With this new physics, hadronic mechanics, you get a unification of cause and effect. You are able to fractalize and in a flat manner called isoself-dual the building blocks of creation. So you have an isoself-dual flat Earth, flat universe. Any component is built of these iso components, which you can geometrically visualize, although it is not so static, as two triangles or two tetrahedrons that are base to base. So that's an isotetrahedron, isotriangle, and it's isoself-dual. And that is the flat bases of the building blocks. Then it is fractalized, and that's called the genotopic plane in this new physics. And it is the hypertopic plane, that is the macro and micro irreversibility, that enables all of these isotopic and fractalized genotopic components to build then the apparent dimensionality that we experience. But there is a geometrical deformation as one goes into the heart of the atom, into the hyper-dense media, according to our lobal three-dimensional sensorial observation of geometry, because it goes into a hyper-local oneness, so, and an all oneness. What has been demonstrated in this new physics is also UFOs that are antimaterial. The Scintilla telescope has a convex and concave lens, so it captures antimatter light. So you put this side by side with a Galileo telescope, and so they've captured antimatter galaxies, antimatter cosmic rays, meteors, etc. But when it was aimed in the atmosphere in Florida, the surprise was that there were these intelligent UFOs that were either completely made of antimatter, but that weren't producing a antimatter to matter reaction, which is a big destruction, but were clearly so intelligently controlled that they could be in matter without disrupting the matter. And there were even UFOs that were made of both, that were made out of matter and antimatter, isomateria. So the antimatter universe has its own universal backset of the ether. So this implies the intelligence behind those UFOs, now captured with the Scintilla telescopes, are so advanced because they are beyond just this universe and the mirror universe, antimatter universe, and the universal backset ether of both, but are the sum intelligence of that has calculated all past, present, and future moments of the total entanglement of our universe and total entanglement of the antimatter time and space universe. So it's again beyond the universe. All is God is deceptively simple. I've written a book about that, which is published by filmmaker Param Gill's company. We're working together for some years. And All is God kind of explores these concepts. It's deceptively simple by sound, but it's immensely complex. The Emmanuel images in 1999 we put into the Unity keys of Emmanuel. The first Unity key was given when I was 22 in the Swiss Alps, the same place I disappeared when I was 1 year and 7 months, when I went into a golden sphere and a search party was after me. My description of that you can see online at the University of Montreal presentation, per example, or the presentation in Rome. So that particular portal above Sion in the Swiss Alps had been catalytic several times in my life. But in 1992, I had a 3-day contact experience with UFOs coming out of the mountain, jumping over the Verpekkeler Glacier, on the Dent Blanche, and such things, as well as one of the Emmanuels, Amathea Emmanuel, in his holographic vehicle. The holographic vehicle is a self-generated, the field has densified into a holographic form. So there I received the first Unity key of Emmanuel. I assembled that into the Unity keys of Emmanuel, the inter-universal perspective for the unity of diversity. One ad hoc to that could be the perfection of imperfection is our experience, as all is God. So no matter what it is, it boils down to all is God, however complex, however simple, and everything in between. Of course, there is this understanding of a personal absolute and impersonal absolute. And this is the beauty with Rig Veda. Rig Veda has both at the same time. So this bifurcating branches that were competing with each other, that the absolute is impersonal, it's just a oneness, or the other, the Krishna people, for example, who say, no, it's absolutely personal. Both are at the same time in the Godhead Heim of the Rig Veda, 1090. What I also found in the Rig Veda, as I went into it in my 32nd year, was an algebra that was in genetic prose. I took 1,000 levels of the human genome, and the Gayatri prose by strophe by which the letters are woven are 8, 16, like the DNA, and this is embedded and repeated. But it also is an astronomical manual. So this is an absolute fact. Dr. Sabash Kak, the astronomical code of the Rig Veda, has demonstrated the exact cycles of our solar system are embedded in the prose of Rig Veda. It's a very profound science. You've got atomic physics in there as well. It appears to be the source of many branches of our cultural wisdoms. And as I said, it's the root of the idea of Christ the Word in that Godhead Heim. But it has this one incarnation, past, present, and future, in a multiverse and hyper-universe or omniverse. So it is all is God, incarnating as all is God in itself, and also pretending not to be all is God at the same time.
I like how you put the past, present, and future is all running at the same time, because in reality, we're the only beings that we know of in the universe that actually run on time. Animals don't, plants don't, trees don't, water doesn't, anything in the ocean doesn't. It's just us. So the fact that you point out the past, present, and future continues to run equally, does that mean that they are running on different dimensions or on our same timeline?
Now, this brings me to one of my favorite topics, and I started on this, Dr. Chris Illett and conch shell morphologies. So he started to try to model conch shell morphologies, 100,000 different conch shell morphologies on computer. And he found that the conventional mathematics, the conch shells would become brittle and fall apart by Euclidean mathematics and geometry. So he started to apply this new mathematics, isotopic and genotopic mathematics. And he could demonstrate in the Biological Sciences, 1990, that even a primitive conch shell morphology at every bifurcation has 4 arrows of time. That is time flowing in the past forwards, and time flowing in the past backwards, and time flowing in the future forwards and backwards. These 4 time arrows are co-present in every bifurcation, demonstrating that primitive life is already time traveling, is based on time travel. With trees, at very high altitude, where the inertia should prevent the sap from going up because of how high they are, the same principle of the 4 arrows of time are used. By 1994, they started looking at the DNA, and the DNA is much more complex, has at least 8 arrows of time. Or if you take Trondheim University Professor Sten Johansen, 512 dimensions. It's 8 times 8 times 8 dimensions. This is based on conversations we had in 2001, because Dr. Andrea Poharic was almost going to 512 dimensions. He demonstrates basically that you can produce all number equations absolutely and completely by these 512 dimensions on a 512 hertz keyboard. A very interesting number, 512 hertz. That's 8 times 8 times 8 hertz. And is also the electromagnetic absorption of water, as Dr. Andrea Poharic demonstrated in exciting water, or electrolysis of water, where over 72 hours, sterile water started producing the amino acids into complex fractal protein forms by excitation of 8 hertz. So the 512 hertz electromagnetic absorption is quite important, and a sideband then appears with a ceiling of 720 hertz and a base of 360 hertz, and then 8 hertz increments, of which 432 hertz is the A when the C is 512 hertz. So these 512 dimensional equations are constantly happening in our body because of the microtubules interacting with calcium, with minerals, with enzymes, and the DNA, the cells, the different scales. So all number systems are occurring. Even the prime numbers are resolved through Dr. Sten Johansen's work, which he puts a lot of money in each year to keep his article in academia. He should have won the Nobel Prize. So he's cracked the 512K system. So it implies that for us to be three-dimensional, we are using a 512 dimensional machinery. So that's multidimensional for you.
Excellent. Let's get to some audience questions here, because they are starting to build up, and they're pretty excited to get an opportunity to chat with you here. Wonderful. And let's start off with a good friend of Eugene here. He's asking, Ananda, what do you think of spiritual illusions?
Well, as reality is a hallucination, color doesn't really exist in the objective universe, that even the eyes are colorblind, and it's the same with the rest of the other four senses. Illusions, some Tibetan Buddhists, like Yeshe Chokshel, she would take the 108 soma plants as part of her more advanced practice, having done loads of meditation practice and other practices. The 108 plants would amplify illusions. And so she would counterbalance this, like she would have poisons and their antidotes to get even deeper into her psychic organism and bioorganism. So she becomes more and more superconscious within her psychic organism and bioorganism. So yes, there's lots of illusions. And when I went to Denmark, I went to these Melchizedek groups there. I was invited there. And you sit down in these circles and, you so-called travel out of your body. It was nothing like the Emmanuel experience. It was a not self-illuminated conscious light. It's more like holograms. And you find yourself on these space platforms, and there you meet Sananda, there you meet Saint Germain, and everyone in the group sees the same things. But at one point I said, this is completely fake. So I decided, well, look, Sananda's wanting me to get into this room that's pink and teach me about this life and that life in Sirius or some other system. And I said, well, this is like a tape recording. So I'm going to imagine I've got a fast forward button like on a VHS tape. And I did that and sped him up. Then when we came back and we talked about our experiences, Aneta was describing that she saw me with Sananda and that there had been a disruption of things. And that's all she could say. But for me, that was basically I see that as a quarantine system. So yes, there is a quarantine system that protects our integral genetic code. We have no free will genetically unless we're in coherence, equivalent coherence to the system itself or greater. And when we apply congruent coherence, compassion in the heart, and sustain it with heart will, with anthropic sentience, then we start to be able to co-create. And that has been demonstrated over 24 years by Dr. Glenn of the Heart Math Institute and Dr. McCraty. So where focus is on samples of DNA, fluorescence is done, a reading is done of it. Then the pilot focuses on the DNA and asks it, or heart wills it, to coil. The heart is measured, there is coherence being measured, peaks of 8 hertz, the golden proportion, etc. So it's demonstrated to be a biological coherence. And the more recent research, which also include the research of Dr. Ventura, very, very promising, had the pilot at half a mile distance produce 3 different effects on the DNA, uncoiling, coiling, and a change in the middle instantaneously, indicating that compassionate love is a non-linear time machine, that it is able to produce 3 genetic changes at the same time by sustained coherence. The research that Dr. Ventura was going to do was trying to now teleport stem cell DNA into the sample. So this kind of research has been academically done, has been written, has been repeated now for quite a while. So in terms of illusions, 8 cycles per second cancels static. It is the maximum connectivity in all the dendrites of the brain, 10 to the power of 12 bits of information rather than 10 to the power of 4 bits of information in a beta rhythm. So it phase cancels, it's an equal phase cancellation that produces phase coherence, the binomial equation that is 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, the binomial sequence of the C tone. It also then produces the golden proportion, which is then a 12-tone music cone as well. And that's a big subject matter unto itself. So illusion or static can be cancelled. But when we step into this, logging into the designer world, we are becoming genetic co-creators. And the same research has been done on random number generators. I'm sure some of your guests have covered that on this show, where sustained coherence, when then focused on, measured and then focused on the random number generators, they produce a non-random outcome. So this becomes reality co-creation. The matrix that is maintaining the quarantine is making sure that we only log in when we are utilizing the most congruent, coherent states.
Ananda Bosman is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get one more question in here, as we got about 3.5 minutes. And let's go over to Anne. What do you think CERN is really up to?
So I had quite a few of my contacts in the mountains above CERN, for instance, with Yolanda Izquierdo in November 1991. Athena's ship came, landed in the forest behind. As we were walking over the Vuache forest in the dark, we heard a voice of 1,000 cascading waterfalls, a holographic series of nodes, Athena's voice. And it kind of acted like a dreamlike, inducing a dreamlike state. And the Emmanuels gave a whole communication about the portal that is at CERN, because Maria Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, she tried to use that portal before CERN with Lord Byron. The trouble was they interpreted from Paracelsus the sacrament to be morphium, and that is, of course, doing nothing. And Joseph of Arimathea, who went on to Valais in Switzerland to mine for gold, and it's a very high energy system in Bovis units, as Dr. Merch Blanche has measured with her technological Bovis meter, higher than the Great Pyramid and other sacred zones. Joseph of Arimathea first went to Lake Geneva and to those catacombs before going on to Sion, as it's now called. It was Sidon before, and did the mining before he went on to England, where he got the Glastonbury Zodiac given to him, 12 islands given tax-free by King Arviragus, in which he made councils of 12 on each of the islands, councils of 144, and he made the tunnel systems in, and started mining, as well as engaged in the alchemical Stargate practices. The Glastonbury Zodiac matches the heavens in their morphology. This happens all over the world. So in that sense, there is already a portal by Lake Geneva. It's just that where you have the greatest good, you've got the greatest bad, but we've got to find that golden middle way. The 666, we've been pointing out that since the 1990s in our intensive workshop seminars in Europe, the cyclotronic system, which is 666, with Alice traveling out of her body, 7 bodies, which is a large ionic collider experiment, Project Alice, Alice in Wonderland. Pinder was working with a woman who was in CERN, and basically what they understood is that the CERN experiments produces cyclotronic resonance. And there was a period in the 80s where Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola added 2 components to certain batches of their drinks, which I think was lawrentium and boron, which becomes the radioactive californium under cyclotronic resonance, which then produces an aggressive effect, which could be modulated. And so this cyclotronic resonance system of CERN appears to be what is going on there. The new physics, spankingly new physics of hadronic mechanics, can quickly demonstrate with 20,000 euros that much of the science of CERN is fake. But there is a scientific obscurism. There's millions and millions and millions of euro being channeled through like a laundry machine for CERN. So a great deal of it is pseudo science.
Your brain is blowing my mind right now, Ananda. And I can't believe we have just half an hour left with you on Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Ananda Bosman is our guest. We look into the stars, the cosmology of it all, when we continue on Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. Dude, you are amazing. You are amazing.
It's our work. It's our work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're blowing the mind here of a lot of our listeners. Blowing the mind. Try and get in all the questions that I have for you.
Great.
Dogman
Yeah.
UK, good morning. And yeah, people are pumped up about you, my friend. Pumped up. D. Swiger, nice to see you return after about a year. Much love to you, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're blowing minds tonight, man. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Just some of the comments from our audience tonight.
Yeah.
Wow. They're loving you. Loving you.
Great people out there.
I like this comment from Moody Mungle. I come back and we're already at physics equals 666. Damn, this guy works fast. Is he trying to give me nightmares when I sleep next? Oh, man. Amazing. I love it when my audience connects, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there's this global scaling experiment that wants to be linked to CERN. I know we're off air, but some people will get this on YouTube. And the global scaling experiment wants to have CERN power it up, and it uses different scales, including the binomial sequence, to transmit information through the Earth grid. Now, if one were to think a bit further and think about Mark of the Beast and such things and other nanotechnology relatives, then yeah, we're kind of looking at the physics of 666. Although it is basically it is it's carbon, 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons.
Right on. Right on. Who is your mentors and teachers in this?
Well, as I said, in terms of guiding me with the English, Sir George Trevelyan and Nigel Blair from Oxford and Cambridge. With Nigel, he had a very big library of different UFOs, Bigfoot, spiritualities, all kinds of things. So when I came back with an experience, he said, "Oh yeah, that's quite normal. Here's a book you can look at where people have undergone that." And I think that was very sobering, because there are lots of traps initially where you can go and think, "Oh well, I must be special," which is a complete entrapment. In that sense, that was a diffusing of that principle that often becomes a flaw, a defect that propagates in these fields. But our main teachers were the Emmanuel. That's why we learned so much. And then to discover that what they taught and transmitted and was recorded, 10,000 pages at least, during our teens, is also the cosmology of Rig Veda in our 32nd year. And then we could compare the DNA of both. That became quite profound in that sense for me, because at that point I was thinking, well, in a way, I'm quite eccentric with these ideas. So, it seems somewhat removed from society, but then discovering the Emmanuel cosmology and their names as part of the authors of Rig Veda, as well as the Deva Akasha, which are the gods of mediating space, and many others. And this book is then the foundation of most of the fields of the world, from astronomy, atomic physics, cosmology, meant that I couldn't hold such an illusion. That this is eccentric.
All right, we got about 20 seconds here. Big thank you to T-Bone ×2, Louis ×3, Lisa for the super chats. We are going to continue with audience questions when we return. Head to our website, spacedoutradio.com. We do not have ugly swag at our store. No ugly swag there, so go get yours today. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We have them till the top of the hour. Ananda Bosman is here. We're taking your questions on cosmology, the universe, life in general. Let's start off with Shell here, who is asking, Ananda, does the veil exist in this new physics?
Of course, the definition of the veil would need to be defined in this exact question, but roughly speaking, yeah. The fundamental particles are seen as oscillations of the ether, and the ether is infinitely rigid and is totally entangled, so it's totally one. And so an electron, when you reduce it to, it requires a reduction to zero for you to have the complete reduction of the electron, implying that it is universal. Of course, Dr. David Bohm in the 50s at Los Alamos National Labs found that in high charge metals, all the electrons appeared as if they were knowing where each of the others were. As if they are one electron. We call this the all-is-God electron. So you've got a fish tank, he would describe, and you would have a fish therein, and you would have 6 cameras, which is filming the fish, and you would have 6 monitors, one fish making 6 fishes. He described that with the electrons. So putting together Dr. David Bohm, who would have loved hadronic physics because it makes his implicate order totally objective. And so taking David Bohm's work with the hadronic mechanics, you've got a single electron universe, but the electron is an oscillation of ether. The proton is an oscillation of ether. And since the hadronic reactors are producing neutrons for the US military to detect shielded nuclear weapons on ships, and that's being used officially, this is done by the fusion of the electron and the proton to make the neutrons in the hydrogen atom. And the resulting energy quality of the neutron is 2.87 mega electron volts. So it is not the sum of the proton and the electron. This in 2006 was the first detection of the etherino, which is the longitudinal amplification of the ether, which endows the unique extra energy and quality to the neutron. This is the first fundamental particle that cannot be reduced to 3 dimensions. So etherino physics is very, very exciting. So a veil, in that sense, between the hyperdense media in the heart of the atom, where the hadrons are an infinite recursion of entanglement, and then the electrons in a metal that become then quantum again. We are a combination of these isoelectrons, as well as our nails and inanimate cells being more in a quantum or quantifiable state of classical physics. Yet the electron is still an oscillation of the ether, and there is no motion of electrons in this physics. There are just different oscillations, changing oscillations of the ether, the universal backset of the universe. So there is a perspective veil. It's a matter of perspective. Unifying oneself to one's unified core is then deveiling, so to speak, the veil.
All right, let's move on here. Let's go to Angie in Australia. Ananda, have you ever seen blue beings with the Emmanuel beings?
Yeah, well, what happens is that the electric blue is the grounding aspect through which the gold, the cybernetic living light, whole light beings emerge. So the blue is a transduction. They are complementary, and of course, blue spheres. They might start as a small blue sphere, grow larger, and that acts as a portal.
Okay. Let's go to Pixie Lara. How can we communicate and learn from the Emmanuel beings?
Kind of what they instill is that we have this integral, innate divine syntax in ourselves, in our own being, in our ontological foundation. What one learns is basically there is a state of compassion, sustained coherence. The senses are fused together when there is this overlight. And it was basically a 7-year period only. I didn't become addicted to it. They made sure I didn't get addicted to it. And I'm very glad for that. I had the experience, but then they conveyed, learn to get there yourself. So the Einstein imaging technique is developed by Einstein. He took 2 stones in his hands, and he would imagine that intelligence in this universe, whether ultraterrestrial, hyperterrestrial, extra-temporal, extraterrestrial, whatever, any one of those, would be using consciousness as the means of communication. And in fact, in hadronic physics, etherino physics, the etherino is the internet of the whole universe, which links past, present, and future as a highway. And so he would imagine having that contact with his 5 senses. So he would taste the reality, would smell it, see it, feel it, etc. And then he would speak it. And Dr. Reinhardt did a study with mentally handicapped patients. He chose 30 of them, but only 17 could learn the technique because of their disabilities. And he measured their brains as well. So 17 patents were made by these 17 patients because they were inquiring with this inner contact for technologies. So they made 17 patents, and all 17 patents passed the US Patent Office. And of course, the judges there are physicists. So they were accepted as working devices. What he measured in the brain waves was that all 8 poles of the brain were linked in 8 hertz. When the culmination by speaking, the sensory fusional contact is engaged. You suspend all critical analysis so that you have the maximum neurocybernetics, and then you analyze it afterwards. And that's the importance of being open, as this radio show is representing in its persona.
Excellent answer. Let's go back to Shell here. Is there a logical, reasonable explanation for magic within this new physics?
Yeah, the word magic comes from the Sanskrit Magyama, which means the golden middle way, which is neither the black or the white, because that's the game board. Anything good must have its opposite, bad, or it's done by the 3 qualities: destructive, governing, and positive, constructive. So, but yet they are a triangle within what is called the Ankara, which can also be seen as the Manu Gala Yantra. So it's triangles within triangles within triangles that are dynamic binomially. But if you focus on one, then it will engage the other as well as the governing one. The golden middle way goes to the foundation of, let's say, all is God, the divine foundation that is the buried treasure of the so-called mystery of ourselves and of creation. So in that sense, it's recognizing there is a superintelligence, and that superintelligence has calculated all past, present, and future moments. When we log into the designer world, we ourselves become co-creators with that all is God, or with that super intelligence. So that becomes a golden middle way, Magayama. So this is different to black and white magic. This is harnessing and logging into the designer world from a macro irreversibility, micro irreversibility in the continuum between them via compassion and congruent consciousness.
Okay, let's continue on with Eugene here. Can you explain the 8-cycle spin inside of the atom?
Well, that is on our website. The exact equation is there that Dr. Puharish utilized. He worked on triple-blind studies with 8 Hertz for 2 years. 2,000 people participated. 27 organic diseases were reversed in those triple-blind studies with his Tesla watch device, which had a pulse of 8 cycles per second.
All right. Let us move on. Let's go to Shell again. What are the 4 arrows besides those mentioned?
You mean what is time?
Sure.
Yeah, so in that sense, this is being observed as the backwards flow of time to the complementary forwards of time, which is often analyzed by Newton. Well, of course, we know that pseudosciences were also massaged through Newton and other Jesuit-related areas of influence of our society. But this is being described as a hyper-temporal index to every bifurcation. So as the shell is bifurcating, is growing, it has the presence of the future and the presence of the past, both backwards and forwards, co-present with it. And that is demonstrated mathematically for 100,000 conch shell morphologies. Look up Dr. Chris Illert. He's a genius scientist. He's left us. And then he worked with Dr. Santilli. They patented the hadronic space-time machines, which would be made out of this matter, the magnical matter of isoelectrons, isosuperconductivity. So hadronic space-time machines have been patented, which means, of course, the extra-temporals basically relay initially that they came from far in the future, but they also opened up the vantage of hypertime, that once you start time traveling, you become the founders of mankind, of other humanities. You have no limit to where you hyper-index time, because you're using the etherino physics, you're using the universal backset of the ether. So you have a past, present, and future information highway and a space-time machine that utilizes that as well. But as the Santilli telescope also found antimatter UFOs and isomatter UFOs, both matter and antimatter, we're also talking about a superior form of technology that maybe even in 800 years wouldn't be there. However, if we start actually harnessing time travel at some point in the future, then our children might steal the time machine and decide to go to Andromeda Galaxy a few thousand years further in time. They have kids and they go back in time to a Milky Way galaxy and to, let's say, a planet like ours. And you just multiply this endlessly, and you start getting a Homo universalis, a universal man that has indexed time from past, present, and future moments using the backset of the ether, using the etherino physics. The etherino also gives a component to our consciousness. So the most congruent, coherent form of our consciousness is 8 cycles per second, all dendrites of the brain. But this comes from the heart of the proton, the magnetic monopole, and the etherino moves through that. So the etherino is cosmic intelligence represented universally in the ether, and this is what's being utilized. And the 4 arrows of time, of course, in this primitive conch shell morphology is much more complex in a more advanced mammalian life. So Illert and Santilli were, as doctors, were modeling 8 arrows of time in the DNA initially, but Dr. Sten Johansen has come up with this 8 times 8 times 8 dimensionality, where he is able to produce all numbers exactly and precisely, including the prime numbers, which is, he should have the Nobel Prize for that, but that's not how the obscurism of science and pseudoscience works. That's part of the demystification that is the quest of each person.
All right, let's continue on. Let us go over to Wild James. What about 741 hertz, 851 hertz, or 963 hertz?
Yeah, so we are staying on the observations of Puharich in our universal tempering. Again, 512 hertz for 72 hours of electrolysis of the water tetrahedron, producing this sideband at 512 hertz, also producing bioluminescence, Dr. Fritz Popp's biophotons, which also the DNA releases, and then the amino acid starts forming in the sterile water and then into fractal proteins. The sideband, again, you've got a ceiling of 720 hertz, and you have got a base floor of 360 hertz, and there are 8 hertz increments between them. So the numbers that are shown there are slightly off to that system, because that is an objective observation that is repeatable, and which is part of the basis of 432 hertz tuning as well. We tend to stick to that. But I'm open to any research that have been done with those frequencies.
Excellent. All right, let's continue on. Let's go over to President Zadi. Are you familiar with Project Babylon at Jack Parsons' lab?
Yeah.
Fill us in.
Well, that's, I mean, it's really it's fairly primitive. I mean, the whole Order Templari Oriente was really taking the Mizraim Egyptian ritual of irregular Freemasonry and modulating it, interpreting it, the alchemical stone, as sex magic. And that's not what Count Cogliastro saw it as, nor did Rudolf Steiner, who was head of the Mizraim Memphis order. He was 96 degrees, and this is irregular Freemasonry. He was the Grand Master until the Anthroposophy was created. So there was a different interpretation. So the Crawley interpretation of it, as you know, that the stone, the philosopher's stone, the sacrament, is sex magic, of course, was worked into Jack Parsons' laboratory, as him being a student thereof and having had correspondence. Now, Ron Hubbard, founder of Scientology, who was part of that, had learned, he claims, within naval intelligence, some of the star law, and he did use a lot of Crawley's, Aleister Crowley's, it's Crawley's, not Crow, or you say something else in the US, but it's Crowley, the lay of the crow. He used the notes of Aleister Crowley to make Scientology. Now, I know all the degrees in Scientology because I've met members who were with Ron Hubbard in the 70s on his boat. And we did our darkroom retreats. And in the darkroom retreats, where you're producing ayahuasca, they describe the OT8, the 8th degree, operating Thetan 8. And it's a whole extraterrestrial mythos about implanting stations, etc. It's a very materialistic spirituality. It doesn't deal with something beyond cause and effect unifying and going superluminal. So the so-called soul is at the speed of light or slower. So it's a mechanistic science, like reincarnation is also, because the soul then would have to be under the speed of light to be able to so-called reincarnate or possess some other form of biology, although the core of biology is an iso or hyper conducting in the new hypergenetic field. So nothing can penetrate that unless it is coherent. So that cancels it as well. So yes, it happened to coincide to some of the UFO phenomena, but the UFO has been here a long, long time, and so has the technology. The Rig Veda describes various forms of UFOs. So the Vataratas are the two-wheeled chariots of the Marutas. The Marutas are golden beings that are able to go through the 49 different domains that are described, later known as talas and lokas, and their permutations, each having their own time flow. So the Marutas are having these Vataratas, which produces a vortexia, produces a vortex, and that is able to modulate through 49 different dimensions. And then there are the Vimanas. The Vimanas are often described, but the Astarakas are another form of UFO. So in Rig Veda, Book 10, Hymn 97, Brahmana Spati goes to the primordial time and takes the primordial goddesses and then time travels them into Earth and implants them into 108 plants, which are to heal the body and the psyche, to make man whole, or Purusa, and Purusa is the cosmic Godhead. And that was the root of alchemy and of medicine, and that was called the Rasana practice. It was the immortal Agastya, who is in Rig Veda, who produced the Rasana texts, where you produce alchemy from plants, metals, consciousness, heat, where you are making the outside like the inside and the inside like the outside. We have very specific data on that from our correspondence with the Hermetic Grand Order, non-Masonic, during the mid-90s, who got samples of the green lion of alchemy and the red lion of alchemy. They knew the alchemist who was there that had made that green lion. That green lion had basically produced a hadronic reaction. The various plant molecules, the orma, orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, and other minerals had become one macromolecule. And they read the material, and there was an infrared signature. They asked the alchemist if they could measure the bioluminescence of his body, and it was the same infrared signature. So the alchemy of many years had made the matter be transducing the same source that is being transduced by the DNA for the bio hologram. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. All right, we got 2 minutes to go. Let's sneak one more question in here. This one comes from Lisa. Can you, Ananda, create or design an art visual, video visual to a Frank Zappa song, guitar of work of Yo Baba? It's not a joke. I want to see the sacred geometry of what it looks like to see the light I feel.
Well, I guess the iTunes visualizer in more early days had components of that, and with Julian sets, with the golden mean, and with other equations. So if one takes the constants like pi, e, phi, Fibonacci, and fractal systems, as well as the genotopic grid, the ISO unit, the genotopic fractalization of it, one starts to get a superior multidimensional animation. But that is work up ahead. And the next thing that needs to happen is hadronic computing, which is vastly superior to quantum computing. The branch is there, but there's no one actually at present pursuing it. I met with Dr. Santilli in 2020 in Florida as I was filming him with Paramjil's film crew, which will be for our series Mystics when we finish that next year or the year after. So the hadronic computers are going to be interfacing with the ether, with the Etherino. You can have a hadronic space-time fax machine, for example. Very exciting stuff. But we also need to make microscopes like we have with the telescope. We need to make microscopes similar to dark field microscopy that can start to see the isoelectricity, the isoelectrons, the magneticals that are in isosuperconductivity composing our world. We didn't have the mathematics before to see that.
What a great night with Ananda Bosman tonight on Spaced Out Radio. AnandaBosman.com is his website. We say goodnight to him. And we say hello to hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio with me, Dave Scott, coming up next.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the time.
Great pleasure. Great pleasure.
That was fun. A lot of fun. You're amazing.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to let you go here, but we're going to do this again. That was so much fun.
All right.
Take care and
you too.
enjoy your Christmas down in the Sunshine Coast.
All right. And you too, in the middle
care.
of BC. And
Take
to the
care.
audience, you take care.
Good night. All right. How good was he? I'm going to have to listen to this one again because it's like, wow. I'll be right back. All right. Having fun? We know Shell Ashley is. It wasn't a fart, Derek. Whose birthday is it? Whose birthday? Whose birthday is it? Chrono Trigger, how you doing? Ray's birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, oh yeah, to you. Happy birthday, dear Ray. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Ray, from all of us at Spaced Out Radio. Well, it's D. Swiger's birthday. Well, then it wasn't Ray's. Happy birthday to you, D. Swiger. Happy birthday to you, D. Swiger. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, D. Swiger. To you, D. Swiger. All right. Thank you to our super chatters. Louie with 4, T-Bone with 2, Lisa, very much appreciate the love. And here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Pactolian. Pactolian is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and another spooky story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. The listener writes, "Hey there, Steve and listeners. So happy that you're doing these listener stories again. I really miss them. Gather around because I've got a wild tale from the 80s that'll give you the heebie-jeebies. It was me and my buddies, Jake and Brent, on a summer night in Alabama, headed to this haunted battlefield we'd heard about. I ain't one to buy into all this ghost hype, but this night, well, it was something else. We set up camp, cracked open some cold ones, and laughed off the eerie vibes. But then it was like the woods started talking. Whispers like old soldiers chatting about war. At first, we thought maybe it was just the wind, but deep down, we knew better. Suddenly, a chill hit us, and we heard what sounded like distant drums, slow and mournful. We followed them to what must have been the battlefield's center, where moonlight danced on ancient gnarled trees. And there they were, ghostly soldiers, marching with a weight of sorrow in their eyes. One guy, in a gray uniform, gave me what appeared to be a spectral salute. It was like they were lost, just like us. The drums hit their peak, and then, poof, the soldiers vanished, leaving us in the quiet aftermath, surrounded by the echoes of a long-gone war. We stumbled back to camp in a daze, packed up just as dawn was breaking, and hightailed it out of there. But that haunted night, it stuck in my head like a catchy tune that you just can't shake. So there it is, my brush with ghostly soldiers in the 1980s. Did we really cross paths with the past? Who knows? Anyway, keep those lights on and catch you on the creepy flip side. Thanks again. Signed, George. Hey, Steve. Love the show and thought I'd toss my hat into the ring with a wild story that still gives me the chills. So, back in college, I had this totally bizarre run-in with a UFO. Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy, but hear me out. It was a crisp fall night, and I'm strolling back to my dorm after a late-night library sesh. Everything's chill until I spot this weird light in the sky. At first, I'm thinking, oh, it's just a plane doing plane things. But nope, this thing's playing hopscotch up there, zigzagging like it's on a joyride. I stopped dead in my tracks, trying to make sense of the cosmic disco show. The light gets brighter, and I swear the air feels electric or something. My heart's about to beat out of my chest. And here's where it gets fuzzy. I don't know how much time passed, but suddenly, it was gone. The light disappeared faster than I could imagine. I shake my head, try to collect myself, and notice it's completely quiet. No usual night sounds, just silence. I glance at my watch, and it's like I've lost a pretty good chunk of time, like a plot hole in my life story. Next day, I told my friends, expected a, whoa, that's nuts, but instead, I get a laugh track. They blame caffeine and stress. I even hit the books digging into the UFO tales, feeling like a character out of a paranormal TV show. I can't explain it. Was it a caffeine-induced space trip, or did I witness something out of E.T.? I've read up on other folks' stories, and it turns out I'm not alone in this weird cosmic club. I'm not saying it's little green men, but hey, maybe there's more to the night sky than meets the eye. Please keep the spookiness rolling on the podcast. Cheers, your friend, Andy.
And thank you to Steve Stockton for coming on in and bringing us another spooky story from Among the Missing. If you want more, you can head on over to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Among the Missing. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and we are good to go. All right, from the missing to the mysterious. Filling in for Courtney Marcassani tonight on the UFO Report, we got Sweet Robbie G.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Sweet Robbie G, I appreciate you coming in from SOR's After Hours on the weekends on our YouTube channel to really start to break through on the YouTube side of things and the radio side of things here. And hopefully very soon we'll have you going off on the podcast side and on the radio side. Give them a nice sweet taste of your dulcet tones, talking those and all weird stuff. How you been doing, buddy?
Been doing all right, Dave. How about yourself, man? How about yourself?
I am pumped up. I really am. I don't know if you heard the Dave 101 the other night.
I did.
But I got up early this morning, or the other morning, pardon me, and met with Mark Petroni on Saga 960 and was talking to him about this. And, the more and more I think about this, Rob, and we've been talking about it a lot, okay, but the more and more I think about this, the more and more I'm understanding why the Schumer Amendment is getting kicked to the curb. And it does make sense. Usually I scratch my head, my friend, on trying to figure out why any government does anything. And usually when a government tries to think too much, they usually screw it up. But these Republican 5, led by Mike Turner and Mitch McConnell, I think they got it right on this one, man. I really, really do. And for those who don't understand what we're talking about, the Schumer Amendment includes a UAP classification change, which means to bring more transparency and understanding to whistleblowers and the evidence that they are providing, as well as bringing more evidence out from the military. And Rob, I know you and I have kind of really knocked knuckles over this whole UAP phenomena versus UFO. And I know you don't agree with me, and I'm okay with that because the beautiful part about it is, my man, we're allowed differing opinions.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is what solidified it. And I actually talked to a couple sources about this. Okay. The reason why the Schumer Amendment is going bye-bye has nothing to do with UFOs or aliens or ET contact. It has everything to do with UAPs that are created on American soil, that they do not want anything to come out about what America currently has technologically. And that's why the amendment is going down. And one of my sources even said, I told you this months ago. Good to see you finally getting it. What's your thoughts on this, my man?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Dave. I'm glad you asked, because the way I feel about it is I don't feel like this has anything to do with government craft. I really don't. The government has their own lane for keeping this stuff secret, and between them and the Congress and the DoD, they have talked behind the scenes in skiffs or what have you to talk about these black projects. And I just don't think that what we're actually seeing are UAP. So I don't think that they're trying to cover up their own, but they've been doing this for years. So it doesn't make sense that they would that this is what they're actually doing. I think they're covering up UFOs. We're right at the point where we're about to knock on the doors of these contractors, and then that's what they're trying to stop. They don't care about the black projects because we'll never know about those until they're ready to come out. Even with this amendment, if this amendment were to go through, there would be no extra information leaked about government projects. The focus would only be for Congress to get to those UFOs and where those are being stored. So I don't agree that that this amendment has anything to do with government craft. They've been keeping them secret for years. They'll be keeping them secret going forward, and I'm okay with that part of it because we don't want to know about the black projects. We want to know about the UFOs that they're holding.
I agree with you on that. And I love the fact that you're agreeing to disagree with me, because the idea behind this is this. If we go back in history, okay, back to 1992, when the former head of Lockheed Skunk Works, Ben Rich, stated two very ominous things. Number one, we have the technology to get ET home again. And number two, that at that time, so we're going back 31 years now, stating that the United States got Lockheed Martin is 50 years, at minimum 50 years ahead of what the American public sees right now, technologically speaking. Okay, that's a lot of toys. We don't know what they have built or what that timeline is like now. What is it, 100 years maybe? Maybe 150 years ahead of where we are today? And from talking to my source, my one source on this, and I want to get this correct here. Okay? So just bear with me for a moment. And I can't. Oh, maybe I can. No, I can't. No, we have a delete on our messages. So, well, those are screwed. But the point that I'm getting at is we have a lot of ability to hide what we are saying. And this source said to me, it's integral. And I'm going to paraphrase here. It's integral that the UAP subject includes UFOs and aliens within it because it's an easy escape to hide American technology.
Reverse psychology, man. And to see it playing into the psyche of a person who fully understands that these things are real means that what they're doing is working, Dave. And that's the problem that I'm having here, is that continues to muddy the waters. So now they've tricked you into believing that this push for UFO disclosure, and like I've said before, it's actually government disclosure, that it has anything to do with black projects. That's one of the problems that I'm having. So now the narrative is we're being tricked. Well, I'm not, but I feel like you're being tricked into feeling like that okay, this whole push is for because they don't want to release information on these actual black projects. When no, the whole push is because they're so close to the point of having to face government disclosure that they're pulling out the last stops. And so we can't allow ourselves to be diverted off of the path and now feel like, oh well, no, this was innocent. What they're doing is they're just trying to, hold or cover up these black projects. We're okay with that. No, we're not, because even in the end, a lot of these black projects, if they are 50, 100 years, if they do have the ability to take ET back home, we know that derives from ET crafts. We know that derives from crafts that they have recovered and retrieved and are holding in these facilities. And obviously, in some of these cases, and it'll probably be proven later down the line, that they were definitely pulling technology directly from what they've learned on these ET crafts and implemented that into these black projects. But we cannot let them, it's almost giving in to feel like, oh, they're doing something innocent. They're just trying to cover up these black projects. We shouldn't be pushing this because. Go ahead.
But they have been. Look at the F-117 stealth fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Goodall, a good friend of yours and mine, one of the top aviation historians in the United States. I think we can agree on that.
Yep.
In 1989, him and his buddy were driving through right near Tonopah Air Force Base, which is just over the mountains from Area 51.
Mm.
And he caught a photo of the F-117, becoming the first civilian to take that photo.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to add, this is important because I'm going to add to this, okay, a little bit. I'm curious your thoughts. At that point in 1989, the F-117 stealth fighter had been in service since 1981. And most of the time, the majority of that time, was only flying at night.
Mm-hmm.
So that way people could not see what it looked like, how fast it could go, what technology it had, anything. Okay. Fast forward to when they allegedly retired the aircraft in 2008. Yet over the last few years, they've been seeing the F-117 flying again out of Tonopah Air Force Range. Why? Because the pilots who are practicing and testing aircraft out at Area 51 need daytime hours. So what they do is they reconfigure the cockpits of these craft that people in the United States already know, which is the F-117, and they reconfigure the cockpits to be whatever the newest in line is that they are testing. So that way these pilots are actually flying the cockpit of a new craft in the body of an old craft. Hence the reason why a retired F-117 is still being seen flying today in the Nevada desert.
Mm-hmm.
So the question then becomes, what do they have? Do they have squadrons of these new jet fighters like they did for 9 years hiding in the mountains of Area 51? what is there. And I find that very intriguing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely developing government craft for sure. There's no doubt about that. We know for sure, we know 100% fact, they're definitely developing and testing out new government craft. No doubt about it. No question there about that. Now, here's the difference. The difference is that a lot of what is built up this movement to where we're at as far as these military reported sightings of different crafts, along with civilian and commercial airplane reported craft or reporting these crafts. The difference is when you have a group like Jim Goodall's, who's I've said before is part of the Interceptor group, and they've been for years going out and seeking these type of projects out, so they know where to go look. And there's a good chance when they go look, they go find what it is they're looking for, and they still operate to this day. By the way, we'll have Jim Goodall on next Saturday, so it should be fun. But with that being said, yeah, they're going to see these crafts. I have no doubt about it. They're going to see these government crafts. Jim Goodall and that group have figured out a way to know where to go and what time of day to see these crafts, and they've had success at doing that. They've been featured on a lot of news programs because they're able to do this, and I don't doubt that that is what they're seeing. But when we talk about these UFOs, because we don't want to confuse UFO and UAP, even though they call them UAP, we know that what a lot of these military pilots are describing are not black projects. So we have to make sure that we don't let them off the hook by just assuming, even though someone may have fed you the information, it could be disinformation. So let's make sure that once again, that the information that we stick to the common sense facts of this. And I think that would be that the government would not report on their own craft if they're top secret craft. I think that's number one. Number two is that what they are doing in this push to have this amendment passed is they're trying to block our access to getting that final answer on where the UFOs are and validating that, yes, we are being visited. We're at that final point, and they're pulling out all the guns to stop it from happening. It's obvious.
Well, I agree they're trying to stop something. I don't agree that it's about UFOs. Okay. And the more and more I look at it and talk to people, the more people are starting to actually believe that this has gone way further than little gray dudes with big black eyes coming to introduce themselves on Earth. Now, I'm not saying that isn't an issue, Rob, because it is an issue. You are 100% correct. It is an issue that is going to have to be defined and discussed. I'm not sure what the tic tac is. I'm not sure what that orb inside the box that has been seen by Ryan Graves on radar, even though it wasn't there in front of his own eyes, but the radar was picking it up. I don't know about that. That could be UFO. It could be UAP. We don't know. But the idea behind that is the 5 guys who are killing the Schumer Amendment. What we do know is, 1, his electoral area is all prescribed around Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right.
And history shows that Wright-Patterson Air Force Base from Roswell on has had a very defined understanding of being one of the secret bases that is heavily used in the United States of America. And
Right.
that we can confirm. What they're hiding there, we don't know. When we return for the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio and the UFO report today, we're going to continue with the Schumer Amendment. We're going to continue the debate, but we also want audience questions regarding the subject. So if you're in our chat room hanging on out, fire Rob or myself a question, and we will get to it. I know you got questions about UFOs, so help us on out. Put those questions up. We will be right back in the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Sweets, what size are you?
What do you mean? T?
You look like a 2XL.
Oh no. If I want some room in here, looking like a 3XL at least.
Oh, really?
At least. Yeah. Shoulders are wide, man. Yeah.
You handsome.
yeah. I'm a wide guy, man. But yeah, man. I'm glad you brought me in for this, Dave. I really am, because I totally don't want I don't want, well, you're going to feel how you feel, but I don't want the narrative to be swayed so much to the side of, hey, this has all been about government craft, because Wright Patterson, and we can wait for the second half.
All right. Do you want to, in your private chat here, put your address in there?
Yeah.
And your phone number.
You got my phone number, Dave.
I know, but then I got to look it up and all this kind of stuff. All right. Let's give the old, you're going to need some socks.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And the I want that Rob G alien head, dude. What's up with that?
I got to get that on there. It didn't, you know what? It wasn't coming through properly.
Wow.
That's the problem.
Let's see.
What color do you want the Sweet Robbie G shirt?
That dark gray.
Dark gray? Charcoal or dark heather?
Yeah, charcoal, I believe.
All right. Coming on in. The old 3XL.
And it depends on how the t-shirt manufacturer, that's the big part, because that size can vary.
Oh yeah, I know. Trust me, I know.
So for shrinkage, go 3XL would probably be the lower side. Go do like a 4 or something like that.
They only have the 4 or 3 on that one.
Yeah, because it's just a shrinkage. I went and got some shirts that fit skin tight, because the t-shirt maker sized them wrong, and yeah. Last thing we want is a skin tight muscle shirt. Well, no, maybe that might look good on camera.
Mm-hmm. All right, buddy. Sending you a couple here. Let me just go like this. Sweet. First name, Sweet Robbie G.
Yeah, everybody here knows. They know who it's for.
All right. All right. California knows how to party.
California
knows how to party. In the city of Compton. In the city of LA.
Where's Brown Dorf at? LA represent.
You're a condor, man.
I'm from Northern Cali though, really, but still California. Yeah, around Dorf. Hey, there he is.
All right, brother. There you go.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I will represent the brand.
Hey, I love the Sweet Robbie G shirt, man.
Yeah, I like particular colors of it. Some of them are like, but I think that the one I picked is a good one. The black one is a good one for that. The white one's okay, but it's because the red goes with certain
Yes.
certain color as well.
Yes.
City of Sacramento, Lex Diaz. Hey, that's where I'm from.
All right, we got 10 seconds here. Thank you to Louis ×4, Lisa, T-Bone ×2. Great super chats tonight. Thank you, loves. Everybody loves. Just much loves. Here we go. Questions. Get them in. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join us on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club, all the way from Bakersfield, California. Joining us tonight, he is a condor among condors, Mr. Robbie G, sweet Robbie G, host of After Hours on our YouTube channel on the Saturday and Sundays. Rob, we got a couple of questions here.
Let's go.
From our audience as we continue the UFO report. Was Tim Bitts an alien? No, Tim. Little Timmy Seymour is real. Very real. I've hung out with him a few times. Great dude. Nothing alien about him. In fact, aliens scare the daylights out of him. So thank you, Lex, for that question. But no, he's not an alien. Shell is asking, I think they keep us closer to 100 years behind actual tech. Your thoughts? Rob, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. Especially when you talk about the weapons and tech race against, between the powers that be. For sure, they keep a lot of that secret, and they're probably more advanced than they'd like anyone else to know. The problem is, I don't believe, I think they really already know how to cover that up, and they're not going to let any of that slip through the cracks for people to see for sure. So go ahead, Dave.
Well, you know what? I think that's a very valid point. As Shell asks, a great question here. I do believe that they're going to try and push the limits on how far we could go. I mean, there was reports earlier last week that basically said that the United States has allegedly developed a missile or a rocket. I don't know what the difference is, but that's just me not being a tech guru. Okay, but that could travel at 20,000 miles per hour. And just in case, it can hit Russia or China in less than 2 minutes. That's fast. That is fast. Oh, and by the way, it can also make 90-degree turns at speed. Now, if that is real, holy cow. Okay? Holy cow. Now, I know, of going back to my broadcasting school days, the cruise missiles could turn at 90-degree angles. When they had all the reporters stuck in that hotel in Baghdad during the original Desert Storm, there was reporters out there who actually saw these cruise missiles traveling down the street lines going to hit their target, okay? And then literally, like they turned their signal on, hung a left or a right to go down another street to collide with their topic or their target, pardon me. So that is what's interesting. It's also come out recently, Rob. I don't know if you heard this, but there was a report on YouTube about the fact that they were about to announce the SR-71's replacement in the SR-72. Now, the weird part about that one for me was the fact that Michael Schratt, who's the underling to Jim Goodall, believes we're more in the SR-74, SR-75 range these days. So is the SR-72 real? Is it Memorex? Is it retired like the 71 and the Aurora program, which was allegedly the 72? What's your thoughts?
See, that's a good question, and I'm gonna love to ask Jim that question next week. But if I just had to give an answer on it, I would think that the SR-71 we know was a reconnaissance craft and was used for spying since then. And the reason why it was retired is because we had other ways to surveil, more substantial ways to surveil, and that tech is obviously improved as well, the way we surveil the rest of the world. So the question would be, is what would it be used for? It couldn't be along the same line of counterintelligence surveillance. It would have to be outfitted for some other method of use. And I'm just trying to think of what that would be. Like what would they outfit it with this time in order for it to be something that would even be useful today? So I don't think it would have anything to do with surveillance, because we're already there. We have about as good as you can get right now, and craft are no longer needed for that. So I don't know what it would be used for if it was a real thing. But then again, why not? Why wouldn't it be? I think it's there. It's potentially there, but I just don't see what the use for it would be.
Well, I mean, do we need that surveillance? Or can it pack a weapon?
Okay, now you're talking. Now, if it was used for a different purpose, then I could see it, but we wouldn't know. I mean, if we're talking about a successor to the SR-71, the SR-71 was for surveillance counterintelligence. So a successor to that, you would assume would be some other sort of counterintelligence surveillance sort type of craft. I don't think in that nature that it would be a successor, but it could be outfitted with weapons. Yeah. And then there'd be a whole nother purpose. So it wouldn't necessarily be the successor at that point. It would be something totally new. But yeah, I mean, that's just speculation. The expert on that, Jim Goodall, will get an answer on that next week for sure.
Well, you know what? That's something we're going to have to ask, because we got to get to the bottom of the line. If Michael Schratt is correct, and I wish we could have went down this angle with him the other day when he was on the show, but if he is corrected and that we are believed to be up to the SR-75, there's a whole lot of black ops going on there, my friend, that we have no clue about.
Well, look at this. Okay, so if we're going to go down the conventional airplane or fighter jet or surveillance jet path, then we're definitely not talking about these UAP being, or things they're calling UAP as being successors to any of those programs. So, I mean, just that type of talk alone could kind of separate what we're seeing in these skies from being anything related or anything descended from any of those other crafts. They're not even close. They in no shape or way or form are they related in any way. So I think that further goes into the points being made that these things that are being seen probably aren't black projects, and they're probably totally separate from anything that they are developing at Lockheed. And the other part of that, the Lockheed, just like you talked about with the senators having these connections to these contractors are the same ones that are housing ET craft, and then also the same ones that are developing government black craft. So there you can see where the confusion would be there. But I think that at the end of the day, we know it's more it would be more of a thing for them to be protecting the fact that they are holding these ET craft versus that they're developing new government craft, because I think that's known across the world that they're definitely doing that. But the thing that's uncertain is, are they or are they not holding ET craft that have been retrieved and recovered. And I think that's the thing that they're protecting and holding.
Wow. That could be. That could very much be. All right. Well, you know what? It's something that we are going to have to watch on a daily basis. Okay. We don't know if it's connected to the TR3Bs, which are the black triangles that many people see, which is weird because there seems to be all of these triangle alleys around North America that just seem to have a lot of black triangle appearances, from different areas around. And I find that extremely understanding. I want to ask you about this. What do you think is going to come in 2024? There's a lot of people speculating about catastrophic disclosure. There's a lot of people thinking that we are going to have to take the bull by the horns and do it ourselves. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah. So great question, actually, because where I stand on that is, even though catastrophic disclosure sounds like this super horrific word, I think that's probably going to be the only way that you're going to get the government to disclose. And so when I say that, I kind of made an example of this the other day. I think there's two different things at play here, right? I think there's a government disclosure, and then I think that there's a humanity disclosure. So I think those are two separate things. So I think when we talk about control disclosure versus catastrophic disclosure, control disclosure is the government being able to disclose at a pace that allows them to, at the end of the day, once they've disclosed it, still be able to maintain their status in their power structure as far as it's currently set up. So I believe that's the control disclosure. I believe the catastrophic disclosure is more of humanity just breaking through and getting the word out that this is real, whether it's from an ET landing on the ground in the middle of everywhere, a massive a coordinated CE5 event where you had summoners bring, on live TV, bring these craft into existence and show the world. I think catastrophic is anything that doesn't allow that doesn't go by the government's plan. So, and that could obviously be 1,000 different things, but anything that doesn't allow the government to control the narrative and in essence, whether it takes 10, 20, 30, 40 years, keep power at the end of their planned control disclosure.
Do you see any ideas, or the people that you're talking to, are they having any sort of real understanding of how this is going to potentially delay, or is it going to be something where we see the resurrection of people like Lou Elizondo and maybe other whistleblowers coming on out to try and rekindle what we know and what we don't know about this subject matter?
So this is what I'm hoping. Is happening behind the scenes. I haven't been proven wrong yet, or at least it appears that way. So the moment that we have a whistleblower and then all the spark dies off of that announcement or movement, just like with Lou Elizondo, once it seemed like we didn't have anything else left, we didn't have any more anonymous leaks coming from the government as far as videos being released. And then here comes David Grush, who breathes a brand new life into the movement and took it actually another step further as far as the type of information that he was bringing to the surface. This was definitely levels above what Lou Elizondo did. And at the time Lou Elizondo did what he did, that seemed like a huge thing. But now we had this other person come out and say, no, there are these programs. We know people, we know where they're at. And I think the next step is for someone else to come out and take that further step and say, who knows? This is where they're at. I'll take you there. I think it'll probably end up being a situation where NDAs may have to be broken. But I think when and this is just my view of it, but I think in a situation where we're in a moment where humanity has a chance to reach a fork in the road where they can go this way or that way, where it's business as usual and we don't really gain anything, we don't get any enlightenment from the huge moment we're in, or going down this fork in the road where the ascension of humanity happens without any interference from the government. So, I think whatever happens, and whoever that next whistleblower is has to be willing to just put it out on the line and hope that the rest of humanity fights for their freedom. And it has to be one of those situations. If we're counting on anything coming from the government or disclosure coming from that way, is going to have to be someone willing to just drop everything and say, okay, I'm just going to take that risk. Here I come, and come out with these photos and everything that we need. Hopefully that happens sometime next year, but who's to say? But that's what we're going to need, because as you see with the in the Congress, as they've put their foot down and they've drawn this line in the sand saying we're not going any further than this. This is what they're saying to us right now. We're not allowing you guys to get any further than you have gotten. This is it right here. So deal with it or figure out something else to do. And that's kind of what they're doing. And if we don't, as individuals, have the power to fight against that, even though they say contact your congressional members and say that you want transparency, we've been doing that for all of our existence and on different issues, and those things haven't been acknowledged or come to light. So what makes you think that this would be something that they would take seriously enough for to listen to you on this? I just don't think they would. So I think they're drawing a line in the sand against the rest of humanity right now, saying you're getting nothing else, and we have to have something up our sleeves. Like I said, we have to have someone from their side say, forget it, I'm for the future of humanity, and step out and say, here's all the information, and then put his hands behind his back and stand up as a true hero for humanity.
Beautiful statement. As we got about 4 minutes to go here before we need to say goodnight here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. And my 2024, I think we're going to see this get a lot uglier. Unfortunately, I think we are in the eye of the storm right now, because there's a little bit of a calm break before everybody votes on the Defense Act. And we're going to see what happens there. And then you have the Christmas and New Year's break. And then I think in early 2024, coming out of the new year, we're going to see a lot of debate and disconcern about this topic. Let's remember, this subject, the Schumer Amendment, was bipartisan until the Republican 5 decided to squash it. And this is also causing a real divide between Republicans, the younger generation that wants more transparency on everything, and the old group that's been there 30 plus years, who has their hands in every cookie jar that they possibly can. And it's going to see who wins on that, because if it is about American technology that they're hiding, the Schumer Act's gone. And even the newer guys like Tim Burchett or Anna Luna or Matt Gaetz or whoever, they're going to change their vote. They're going to swing their support. This is where it's going to get very, very interesting, my man. Very interesting. But I don't think we'll see aliens in 2024.
We won't, unless I'm organizing a CE5 event. I said this, I forgot who I interviewed the other week, but I said that would be a good, I think it was Brian Bowden actually who came on. And I said, you know what? He said he can bring these things in. I said, we need to set a date where we have all the people who can do this. We need to bring them all together. We need to set up an event where this can be publicized. It can be shown on TV, where these crafts are being summoned in front of the world. And then we bypass any sort of need for government disclosure. Then they have to play at that point. So more to come on that.
Yeah, it's going to be more to come. And it's going to be real interesting to see who the players come out of this are. I think 2024, we see Lou Elizondo's book finally get released in late spring. I think that's going to open up a lot of Pandora boxes. I believe that we're going to see a real figuring of speech about UFOs and UAP. What is being covered up? Are there a difference, like I believe, or are they still the same thing that Rob believes? I think that'll be solved in 2024. I think we're going to see a lot more positioning on whether or not other amendments or other alphabet agencies are going to come play the game. But I do feel, Rob, that they are governmentally running out of options at this point. You can't keep waiting until December for a new defensive budget in hoping that there's money for UFOs. At some point, it's got to come to a head. Is that what we're seeing now? Only time will tell in 2024, my man.
Yeah. Sadly, I think we're coming up against the end of this battle, and just as far as the posturing that they would have done all these years, I think a lot of that's going out the window, and they're kind of just standing their ground, saying, "Look, this is it. You're not getting any further. This isn't going to happen, and we're going to keep fighting." So it's going to be crazy how this turns out.
Yeah, my man, and I want to say a big thank you to you for filling in for Courtney Marcassani tonight, who was having technical issues with her computer. Yeah, her Starlink just doesn't seem to want to play ball with her lately. Don't know why. It was working fine before, but now, just makes you go all Marge Simpson. But I appreciate anytime I get a chance to chat with you, my friend. It's always a good night.
And believe me, I couldn't wait for you to do this, man. I was punching the walls the other day when you were giving your day 101. I was like, I need to talk to this guy about this right now. I want my opinion to be heard immediately. So great that you brought me on so I could voice that with you today. So appreciate it.
Well, maybe you need to start Sweet Robbie G 101 for your show.
I thought about that. Yeah.
We get that going there. But for tonight, it ain't going to happen because we got to say goodnight to everybody out there. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for tonight. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to make a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. All right, sweets, we're clear.
All right. Awesome stuff, man. Yeah, glad you brought me in for that and allowed me to release.
Oh.
Therapeutic. It was very therapeutic.
You're a therapeutic guy. You're like Mr. Therapeutic.
I've heard that.
I'm going to give you the old hat tip for that.
Yeah. Definitely, man. Definitely, sir. So, yeah, I mean, the Rob's, I used to have on my show something called Rob's Rants, where I had a little 2-minute thing that I used to do. But, I don't want to, what they call swagger jack. I don't want to jack your swag on that day. So
no, man. You got to do it. You got to do it. I have no problem with that. People need to hear your opinion too, brother.
Yeah. I'll figure out. I want to figure out a different way to present.
You're their candy. They need their sweets.
Yeah. Well, I was able to get it out today, so that was cool, man. Because I was punching the walls, man. I'm like hearing your 101 and the UFO report, the last one that you guys are doing. I was like, man, I need to be the third wheel on that conversation, man. I have something to add to this, but we got it in today.
Nikki, why did you cancel your show? You got aliens running around your feet again?
Well, it's tough running that late show is what it is, man. Sometimes things come up, believe me.
Yeah. All right. Rob, I want you to stick around.
I'm
going to say goodnight here to the radio audience here.
Okay.
Because you and I have to prep for a busy weekend behind the scenes. And so thank you to Louis ×4, to T-Bone ×2, and Lisa for the super chats. It's going to be a great weekend with Jessica and Sweet Robbie G. And you guys, you go have fun. I think the chat room stays open. I'm not too sure, but we're going to call it the night, and we'll talk to you guys on Monday when I will be back with my guest from the USS Princeton, Kevin Day. We'll see you then, everyone.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.